minority voters. Joining me right now, New York State Democratic Party Executive Director Basil Smikle back with us, and the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Alveda King. Dr. King, starting with you, do you think that the Democrats have betrayed African Americans in this country?
Honestly, I believe it's fascinating that Mr. Donald Trump, staying true to his own playbook, does things that nobody else generally dares to do. That's some of the information is in the playbook of the conservative African American about how historically it's the Democrats that did many of the oppressive things to the slaves and the blacks in America. And so he's saying things that many people have known but wouldn't say. Whether it will help my brothers and sisters in the black community to vote for him, I don't know. I promise you I'll be voting pro-life, I can tell you that.
You know, but Basil, she makes a good point, and it's something I referenced in the intro, and I was saying to our producers this morning when we were coming up with this segment, it really is shocking to hear him effectively go there. But it's true, the Republican Party was the party that, you know, that of emancipation. I mean, it's a party that traditionally really was for Black Americans in a way that Democrats weren't. But historically, that all sort of got muddled. Well, and somehow, Republicans have been presented as being these sort of racist bigots. He's trying to turn that on its head.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do that with less than 3 months left in the election, because there's a broader conversation that I think needs to take place within the Republican Party that was attempted back after 2012, if you remember, with the so-called autopsy, and some outreach even to some churches in Brooklyn when I noticed some Republican leaders going there. But what I also think is neglected is the movement of African Americans to the Democratic Party, starting with Franklin Delano Roosevelt with the New Deal, going through the 50s and 60s, in particular in 48 when the military was integrated. Then you get to Kennedy and Johnson with the focus on inner cities. And it was in 1960 that I think Republicans got, was the last time they got more than 20% of the African American vote, because the party's policies, Nixon, Reagan, and onward, just turned away from where communities of color were congregating.
And yet, you know, these communities are struggling in ways, Dr. King, that are far more severe than anything we've seen in recent memory. Race relations have gotten to a point where, I mean, it's just unthinkable, the things that are happening right now in this country. And so I look at it and I wonder if these communities, you know, in electing so many liberal thinkers and policymakers, have they really effectively hurt themselves in that they sort of can't get out from under?
Well, my daddy, Reverend A.D. King, taught me and my granddaddy, my Uncle Martin Luther King Jr., Uncle MLK, that we're one human race, Acts 17:26. Now, Uncle ML was an independent. Daddy King, Martin Luther King Sr., was a Republican. He did vote for President Kennedy because President Kennedy helped get my Uncle ML out of jail. But Daddy King was a staunch Republican. And so it's very important that we know these views today and know our history, because if you don't know your history, you're going to repeat it and it's going to continue to hurt. So I believe it is important that we're getting at this moment in time a very important history lesson. And in many cases, the vote will very likely follow what we learned when the lights come on.
Mm-hmm. And surprising that it's coming right now from Donald Trump, Dr. King?
It's so surprising, but he's just so unconventional. Yeah. And he's just Mr. Trump. I mean, that's who he is. Yeah. I like what he does about when he says, not so much what do you have to lose, but I heard him say this week, enough is enough. Because there's a lot to lose, so much has been lost. But he does say enough is enough. I didn't like the racially colorblind, because if we're colorblind, we need glasses, but we need to see and celebrate those ethnic distinctions. So those are some of the things that I hope that my friends and colleagues who are meeting with Mr. Trump, advising Mr. Trump, will tell him there's a wonderful thing about the African American community. We're resilient and we're productive, and there's so much that we have to offer. So I just like hearing, you know, black people, I'll ask you to vote for me. Hey, that's so Trump.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, these are conversations that need to be had. and now he's forcing them. So fascinating times indeed. Dr. King, Fazil, thank you so much. Good to have you both here. All right, everyone. We always have